Good afternoon, everyone. We have a wonderful session for you today on the topic of building global creative cities. During this session, we will be exploring how cities can be developed to support blended cultural realms and social prosperity. By asking the question, what is the cultural and creative recipe for thriving urban ecosystems? We have a distinguished and diverse panel to unpack this question for us and discuss the importance of facilitating creative clusters and entrepreneurial ecosystems through the right policies and infrastructure. Please welcome me in inviting to the stage our panelists, Her Excellency Hala Badri, Director General, Dubai Culture and Arts Authority. Mr. Albara Al-Ohali, Deputy Minister of Strategies and Cultural Policies in the Ministry of Culture, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Joining us virtually is Dominique Paré, CEO, Cité Services Saint-Étienne. And we have Andrea Dempster-Chung, co-founder and executive director of Kingston Cultural District in Kingston, Jamaica. By way of introductions, I am Belize Tejrile, Sustainability and ESG Advisor at Aramco and Senior Fellow at the Global Cultural Districts Network. And by way of introductions of our panelists, we have Her Excellency Hala Badri, who has been the Director General of Dubai Culture and Arts Authority since 2019, pursuant to a royal decree from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai. Prior to joining Dubai Culture, Her Excellency was a senior advisor on strategic communications for ADNOC and the executive vice president of brand and communications at the UAE's second telecommunications company, DO. Her Excellency's extensive and wide range of experience and knowledge spanning the oil and gas entrepreneurship, sustainability, communications and media fields, and her dedication and professional leadership has enabled her to make outstanding achievements across several sectors, ranging from supporting the process of transformation of companies to the creation of brands, the advancement of social responsibility, and the strengthening of corporate experiences. Her Excellency also serves on several boards of directors, including Dubai Women's Establishment, Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum International Photography Award, Dubai Media Council. Throughout her career, Her Excellency has played pivotal roles that have contributed to inspiring and motivating women in the UAE to pursue their aspirations and achieve their dreams, and regularly features among the top 50 most influential Arab women in the GCC economy. Her Excellency holds an executive master in e-business from Zayed University and a higher diploma in communication technology, specializing in journalism from the higher colleges of technology. She's also a certified corporate director by INSEAD Business School. Mr. Albara Al-Ohali works as the Deputy Minister of Strategies and Cultural Policies in the Ministry of Culture of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Today, Mr. Al-Ohali will be sharing with us his insights and experiences from Jax district of Diriyah. Diriyah is home to Al Turaif, a UNESCO World Heritage Listed site, and now is also a repurposed state of Jax. Comprising of over 100 warehouses, this is a custom-made art space that will serve as the venue for the Diriyah Contemporary Art Biennale, as well as presenting immersive contemporary art exhibitions and interactive experiences for the local as well as the international community. Previous to his current role, Mr. Al-Ohali was appointed the head of ISRA programs at the King Abdulaziz Center for World Culture, where I had the honor of working with you.
The honor is mine, thank you.
Driving the creation and activation of numerous inspiring cultural creative programs at the center itself and internationally through its global reach. He has also served as a consultant for the Kingdom's Ministry of Economy and Planning, as well as being appointed as a deputy head to one of the Kingdom's Vision 2030 realization programs. Mr. Al-Ohali holds a bachelor's degree with first honors from King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals and a Master of Sciences in Computer Sciences from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology.
Thank you.
Dominique Paré, a CEO of Cité Services Saint-Étienne. He directs the Cité du Design's development subsidiary, Cité Services, which provides service design support to companies and produces cultural design exhibitions. The Cité du Design is a platform that raises public awareness of the challenges and uses design through teaching and research, exhibitions, workshops, a renowned biennale. The Cité du Design also provides services to local authorities and businesses while actively participating in the development of the economic, touristic, and cultural attractiveness of the city and the metropolis. In this capacity, he has piloted major development programs such as the Manufacture Creative Design District, the Health Engineering Campus, the Lyon Saint-Étienne Creative Industries Metropolitan Project, and the French Tech Program. In 2019, Dominique directed the Biennale International Design Saint-Étienne. A graduate of the Institut Minas Telecoms, Dominique's academic and professional career has spanned from and trade to digital innovation and more recently, cultural design. And last but not least, Andrea Dunster-Chung is an engineer, entrepreneur, and executive. She's the co-founder and executive director of Kingston Creative, a non-profit organization developing an art district and creative hub in Kingston, Jamaica. She is also the founder of Bookophilia, a bookstore that promotes Caribbean literature and its authors. Andrea has held senior management roles in the private sector and the government of Jamaica and served on the boards of Jamaica Social Investment Fund, the National Land Agency, and the Public Health Committee. She recently managed the arts portfolio for the British Council in Jamaica, where she developed strategy and implemented key projects in film, literature, and visual arts to build capacity and drive the creative economy in Jamaica. Her passions are empowering creative entrepreneurs by enabling them to build profitable businesses and contributing to impactful projects that drive the creative economy and transform a city. Andrea holds a Master of Sciences in Structural Engineering, a Prince 2 certification in project management, and a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, as well as studying art and finance at the Sotheby's School of Art in London and finance at the Stanford School of Business in California. A wonderfully impressive panel for you today to unpack this large topic. And before we begin, I think it's important to really understand what we mean by global creative cities. And this is a question for the panel. Perhaps we could begin with Your Excellency. What does global creative cities mean to you? And within that meaning, what is the role of creative clusters and entrepreneurial ecosystems?
Thank you, Belize. Very happy to be here with everyone within the creative sector. So a global creative city is about enablement, in my opinion. So it's about enabling knowledge-based, knowledge-based activities within the sector. And it also has a very strong infrastructure. And when we speak about infrastructure for the creative economy or the creative industries, we're looking at ideation is the entire creative value chain. So from ideation to creation to production, reproduction, promotion, dissemination of goods, and distribution of these goods across. So it's about also having accessibility to this. Now, when we speak about the creative clusters and the value of creative clusters. In my opinion, creative clusters are really a platform that allows you to do everything that I just mentioned within the creative supply chain, which is again ideation, creation, production, etc. And it's also a hotspot for the talents to get connected, interconnected, networked, and also be able to thrive within that environment. And if you link it to entrepreneurship, if you look at the creative industry as a whole, you'd realize that, at least in our numbers in Dubai, it shows that 97% of the creatives are actually entrepreneurs. So if you look at them, they would thrive in those creative clusters. Then globally, what happens is that to become a global creative city is that you enable them, you provide them the platform, but you also provide them the ecosystem to thrive. And that's where I believe it all comes together.
And just picking up on that.
Yeah, speaking of that, thank you, Your Excellency. When we talk about creative cities or clusters, it's in simple words when creativity or cultural industries are integral part or strategic factor in the development or the urban planning of the city or of the district. And why the focus on this in the current moment across the world? I think there are three elements. First, it's not creativity for the sake of creativity itself, but creativity here will unlock a great potential and make an economic impact on the city and on the country as well. So there is an important economic factor here. Also, there is an increased demand across the world, and in Saudi Arabia, for example, we're talking about JAX specifically, there is an increased demand for those creative people to have a safe haven where they can explore, work, express their ideas and thoughts, and interact with each other, which is an important word here, interaction. We live in an era of cross-disciplinary experimentation. A lot of the inventions that happened throughout the past 1 or 2 decades are coming or a result of a cross-disciplinary experimentation when people from different fields work with each other, interact with each other to come up with the creative ideas that can see the light then and make our lives as a human or as people better and better. So here is the other element that we are trying to do at JAX to create this haven or safe haven for people to explore and interact with each other. Also, tapping on what Her Excellency mentioned, when I always say when there is a marriage between creativity and entrepreneurship, an amazing child will come to life. So this is what we're hoping for in JAX.
Andrea, I'm going to pose a question to you before coming to Dominique.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here all the way from Kingston, Jamaica. So hi everyone and thanks for having me. So Kingston is a city, tiny city of 1 million people in a tiny island of 3 million people. But we have an outsized cultural resonance around the world. We've given the world 8 different genres of music, superstars like Bob Marley, Usain Bolt. And so for this tiny island, I think it would not be hyperbole to say that we are already a global creative city known for its culture. However, when we at Kingston Creative think about what does a global creative city really mean, it has to be a relationship that benefits the creators of the culture. You can't call yourself a global creative city if your creatives are not building wealth for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. You can't call yourself a global creative city if your creatives have to immigrate to the UK or to the United States to tap into an ecosystem so that they can succeed. So we really have to look at providing that ecosystem and providing the investment and all the support that creatives need. Talent is not enough. You actually have to have a thriving ecosystem in order to really be a global creative city.
Thank you. Dominique, would you like to pick up from there?
I'm happy to be there, far from you, but so next with ideas. So a global creative city is probably like a meta-cluster, a space with a lot of empathy, competitive, innovative, and so clustering and proximity in general is also important for innovation, and especially in creative industries. because this kind of innovation is more inclusive, is an open innovation, user-centric innovation, collaborative innovation, and probably I think that a global creative city is a city which has the capacity to choose the best way to be competitive, to combine creative industries and traditional industries. We know that creative industries, particularly sectors having to do with design or entertainment, seem especially desirable. Few need for materials, only brains, and often a lot of profit. And for me, the challenge is to combine standard industries and creative industries to create global creative cities.
Thank you. I want to deep dive a little bit into your specific contexts. Your Excellency, Dubai has seen many initiatives focused on the development of the creative sector and entrepreneurship. What has driven this progress? Also,
Sure.
in addition to that,
Sure.
what can other contexts learn from the experiences of Dubai?
So for Dubai, I think one of the most important game changers, if you want to call them, is the strong leadership. The vision of the leadership to make Dubai a global creative city. I think it's also about having an ambitious strategy for the creative industries. Third aspect is basically having an agile system and having an agile legislative system that allows changes to happen easily for the creative economy. Fourth is the infrastructure. Do you have the infrastructure to support? It's like Andrea mentioned, it's about having a full ecosystem. And last but not least, it's about having future-focused initiatives. Her Excellency, Director General of UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay, mentioned this morning, it's about having that full environment, that accessibility to data, that digitization that allows you to actually have full access to the value chain. And this is what has made Dubai different. It has been fully spearheaded by the leadership. It believes in talent. It believes in the ecosystem that allows the talent to thrive. We have, for example, recently looked at the journey of a creative when he's an entrepreneur. So we found out that that journey takes about 9 different stages, and we were able to simplify it to a 7-minute journey online. So you can go online, obtain your licensing, complete all your basically journey in just one place instead of having to go to 9 different government entities. And that's important. That's a real game changer. And this is what I think is important for anyone looking to learn is what Dubai has done is that it has #1 priority is that it's not only about talent, but how can the talent thrive and grow? It's not just about saying we have 50,000 creatives. It's about how those 50,000 creatives come together and create something of value. Because at the end of the day, whatever they produce has to also be consumed. And if they don't have that accessibility, then you have also not met your targets.
Thank you. Mr. Aloheli, if we could talk a little bit about JAX, which has come a long way from a deserted area to a vivid center of arts and cultural activities. And it's part of the cultural transformation that's currently taking place in Saudi Arabia. How will JAX impact the quality of life in the city and the country, as well as being relevant for the increase in international tourism in the kingdom?
Yeah. Thank you, please. First, for those of you who doesn't know الإبداعية, to just give a background about it, الإبداعية is a very historical city near Riyadh. It was the capital of the first Saudi state, and it goes back in history for long centuries. Long centuries ago, the tribes, when they move from one land to other, they try to find places where they have plant and water, and that place, the area had a lot of plants. It was used to be called the green land because it had plants, a lot of plants and palms and water. So the well-known tribe, Banu Hanifa, they resided there 16 centuries ago. So the history, this area is very rich in history, and it has a lot of elements that are related to the culture that needs to be preserved, where we strongly believe that preserving history is important, and preserving culture is not a secondary element in life, it is a very primary element. It is an important element into our story as human being or human species throughout the long centuries of evolution and development. So the culture had been already there, and the country and our leadership trying to preserve this culture, and at the same time to nurture it, to support it, to make sure that it evolves through time. So what happened in the area as part of the leadership focus on protecting the history and tapping into its potential, an authority was established, which is chaired by His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince. It's called the Gate Authority Development, to develop that area. So this is we're talking about a space that is very interesting and very important. And the transformation that's happening in Jackson for us is a symbolic sign of all of the cultural scene that's happening in the kingdom. The culture had been already there since a long time, but now we're not nurturing it, we're nourishing it to unlock the great potential out of it. Having such a city or such a creative district will definitely make a great impact into the quality of life of the people who are residing there, the visitors, in terms of when it comes to inspiration, when it comes to making sure that they are connected with each other, providing events, activities to the people, to the families, to the kids, incubating talented people and talented creatives and entrepreneurs, creating jobs for those who will work there, and opportunity for the small businesses, whether in food and beverage or in any other field, to come there and to showcase their work or to showcase their creative expressions. So we wanted this to be a meeting point, to be a place for creatives to come together, showcase their work, and to enhance the quality of life as a result of that for the people who are residing in this area and for the visitors who are coming, whether locally from the kingdom and, as you mentioned, internationally from across the world.
And as a follow-up to that, I know Jax is still under development. Once it's fully operationalized, what do you envision as performance indicators to test if it's the values that you've just spoken of, if it's performing to those values?
Yeah, of course, there are several indicators that we usually measure when it comes to number of events, number of international institutions that we host, because we're focusing on that element to make sure that we're building a cultural bridge between us and between the whole world. And we usually use the word that's homegrown yet globally connected. So when we invent something, we make sure that it's connected to the whole globe, because we are all now living in the, as we call it, in the same city or same village. So we look at all of those indicators that are, let's say, the typical indicators when it comes to number of inventions, number of people, number of visitors, etc. But for us, the real thing is the smiles that we see in the faces of the people who are visiting and in the families, and the impact and the sense of community and belonging that we create among the people. And as our leadership always say, the sky is the limit. So we want this city to be among the top creative cities across the world, hopefully.
Fantastic. Dominique, I'm going to turn to you. We were just talking about people and experiencing a cultural space and the emotions that brings with it. Would you say that design puts people at its heart? And could you tell us more about why this is important for cities?
It consists of applying principles of design, user-centric approach, in the making public policy. This is both a mindset and a series of methods to examine the problem of the society. The aim is very simple, to better understand situations, to involve citizens in tests and simulations, and to develop prototypes of solutions that can later be deployed with a better chance of success. Our approach is a multidisciplinary and collective practice. Designer acts as one element of a broader set of professionals like sociologists, social network professionals, video artists, ethnologists, journalists, philosophers, etc. And we can take an example. This is the Bande d'essai program in Biennale of Saint-Étienne, which consists of working with companies to deploy innovative street furnitures and test these furnitures with citizens. This makes it possible to work with the inhabitants to define the needs and then to design with the companies a response to the use. More recently, for example, we are working for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games in order to deploy active design infrastructures as part of a user-centric approach.
And given the role that communities play in design, as you just mentioned, testing street furniture, how important is public awareness of design and the role it plays in the creation of cities?
Yeah, because design is emergent, so it's very important to develop design awareness, and design awareness should make it possible to achieve three objectives. First, the education of our children to create the creative entrepreneurs and creative employees of tomorrow. It's about developing a new way of thinking. It's very important. After, you have to support the transformation of companies towards user-centered innovation and towards the transition to the service approach. Today, in Europe, there is a main techno-push approach. So we have to support this transformation. And finally, we have to support the creation of new public services that will provide a better response to citizens.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dominique. Andrea, I'm going to turn to you. Her Excellency and Mr. Alohali have talked about the importance of leadership in becoming a global creative city and the creation of creative clusters and entrepreneurial ecosystems. As an engineer, a specialist in art and finance, and as an entrepreneur, you must have encountered a lot of silos, maybe differences in views as to the value of creative clusters and entrepreneurial ecosystems. How do you go about breaking them down?
Good question. I think everyone can relate to the issues of silos and boundaries, and I'm hugely impressed by how your government has. We'll talk afterwards about that streamlining to 7 minutes. But I think silos and boundaries really can be overcome by consistent communication, by having a really compelling vision, and by the power of community. If you can get a critical mass of people to understand what you're trying to build, the value of this creative city, and if the people at the ground level are with you, and you can explain to everybody what the win is for them, then you can overcome the silos and boundaries. But it's really consistent communication and lots of patience, because silos weren't built in a day and they don't disappear in a day. But that consistency and having the community behind you, sharing the vision, I think that's key to overcoming the silos and boundaries.
And to play devil's advocate, when is government intervention the answer, and when could it be a problem?
Well, so there's some research from the GCDN, the Global Cultural Districts Network, and it tells you that 80% of cultural districts around the world are created from the top down. So the government makes a plan, they resource the plan, and it's built. And 20% are from the ground up. A community just starts doing something creative, and then eventually everybody just kind of crescendos. So Kingston Creative in Jamaica, we are one of the ground up. We are one of the 20%. So we've been going since 2017, and it's gradually gathered momentum. But even if you are community-led, you still need government support. There comes a point where the two must meet. And so you need government support for developing smart policies. You need it for investment. You need it for major infrastructure in a city. An NGO cannot impact sewage and water for development. An NGO can't create affordable housing to avoid gentrification, which is a real risk when you're developing a creative city. So I think it's not about when government is too much. It's about how do we develop partnerships between government, private sector, and third sector, because that's what's really worked for us when we have those three entities working together.
Wonderful. We may have some images of Kingston Creative, as well as Jack's. If we do, let's run them in the background, please. So I'd like to ask some closing questions to our panel. Given your experiences within your specific context, what are the top 3 things that need to be in place for creative clusters and entrepreneurial ecosystems to thrive? Your Excellency.
Thank you. So I think the number 1 important point for us is about simplification. Simplifying your processes, simplifying your systems, that makes it easier for entrepreneurs or creative entrepreneurs to move forward faster. Second important element is education, education, education. For us, we have a lot of startups. Most of, or 97% of the creative community are micro to small to medium businesses. A lot of them do not reach the maturity level. And it is our role as government and as partners, the private sector, the community, the education system, to help provide that platform of learning for them. So from our perspective, we have, for example, partnered up with LinkedIn. I'm sorry, the echo is...
There's a bit of feedback, yes. Wonder if we can fix that technical glitch. We have a little bit of feedback coming through.
So we partnered up with LinkedIn, and that was done during the pandemic, because the number 1 challenge for the creative system was accessibility to education. The creative community wants to focus on their work. They don't want to be bothered by the legal system or the business system and other stuff. So it was important to partner up with a platform like LinkedIn and allow massive access to more than 10,000 people across the UAE to access more than, I think, 50,000 hours of education from the creative community. That was very helpful. We did that during the pandemic, and it was important that this becomes a continuous platform for us to educate. Now, the last part that we need to focus on is finance and sustainability of funding. A lot of the creative community finds it very difficult to find or understand the financials available to them, be it through their banking requirements or be it through funding, the micro grants that are available from the government or the private sector. So for us, it's very important to provide that platform that allows the creative entrepreneurs to have access to it, and educate them on how they can have that access to it and how they can utilize that to scale up their businesses. So they don't remain to be a local brand, but then they become a global brand. And therefore, the government's role is also to ensure, like Andrea mentioned, is that we provide platform for them to market their products and their basically IPs to the world. Mm-hmm. So these are the 3 more important aspects that we'd like to focus on.
Thank you. Alvaro?
Thank you. I'll try to mention additional points to that. I think first is adaptability. Adaptability is very important. We live in a world that's constantly changing. the trends, the market trends are changing a lot. So it needs first to reflect the interest of the people who are, or the residents and the visitor, and at the same time, adopt the market trends across time so that it can evolve in the right way. So adaptability is very important. Second is inclusivity. The space needs to be inclusive, and the cultural fields and creative fields are by design, they are based into inclusiveness, cultural exchange, dialogue, both at local and international level. So it's very important to have it inclusive, open to everyone, to all cultural fields, cultural backgrounds, all subcultures, with different schools, different interests and thoughts, because this is how you ignite the creativity out of the people, from having this kind of diversity between the people. So this is the second one, I think. And the third one is the authenticity and organic growth. Andrea talked about the 80 and 20%, top-down and bottom-up. Whether it's top-down or bottom-up, it needs to be authentic, and it needs to have the organic growth element, because this is how cities evolve in nature. It needs to be inspired by the ambitions of the people, the thoughts of the people. It needs to reflect the people, and through the organic development of the area, a lot of amazing things can happen with time.
Dominic, if I may ask the same question to you, the three key ingredients to creating global creative cities.
It's a great question. First, I think you have to create a template to focus the problematic. And then you have to organize and structure the creative sector by creating an incubation and development support program at local, regional, and international level to create combination. And probably you must develop connection with other sectoral clusters to make creativity the main way of innovation. Creativity and culture must become the support of the digital and ecological transition for the next years.
Andrea, you touched on some of the key ingredients.
So
what would
the
you
three
say are the top three?
ingredients,
Go ahead.
they kind of boil down to the 3 T's. So it's talent, trust, and technology. So first of all, we were speaking backstage about how Jamaica is crazy talented. When you just scratch the surface, everyone can sing, dance, and it's not the same across the world, but we think it is. We think it's so common, but it's really not common. So we have to nurture that talent, train that talent. We have a 3-year program with the IDB Lab where we're investing in training our creatives. So honing that talent, that's the first thing. The second thing is trust. In order to build those partnerships that I spoke about, there has to be trust. And that's just a patient process over time so that you get the collaboration and not the competition, because sometimes that can hold us back, you know, if different entities are working at cross purposes. And the last thing is really technology, because the metaverse is here, right? We were also speaking backstage with a presenter that's coming up later this evening. NFTs are here, everything, the decentralization of how cultural goods and products are transferred across the world, that the bottle is open. You know, we're not getting the genie back in. So it's about how do we enable our creatives, some of whom are grassroots operators, some of whom are living in areas without Wi-Fi, without good technology services. How do we enable them to make sure they're ready for this new technological world, you know?
The future.
So that's it, talent, trust, technology.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the panel today, Her Excellency Hala Badri, Mr. Albara Al-Ohali, Dominic Paré joining us virtually, and Andrea Dempster-Chung. Thank you for sharing your insights and experiences. I hope the audience have had a great session as well. Please join me in thanking you all wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.